Good morning, Colorado. You are listening to the Daily Sun Up. It's a conversation with the Colorado Sun. I'm team editor David Krause. Before we jump into today's conversation, here is a quick message from our sponsor.
Take a day to focus on your goals and learn from top thought leaders. The Ames Community College Spotlight Speaker Series returns September 16th with best-selling authors Dan Heath, Susan King, and change leadership expert Cassandra Worthy, all live at the Ames Welcome Center in Greeley. One day, 3 powerful perspectives. Set the summer trend. Electrify your lawn equipment and help reduce harmful ground-level ozone in your Front Range community. Learn more at simplestepsbetterair.org.
Now, back to the show. Thanks for tuning in today, everyone, and making us part of your Tuesday. Last week, the ride-hailing company Waymo held a media event to give journalists a bit more information and context on how these autonomous vehicles will work in Denver. Sun business and tech reporter Tamara Chuang has really been following the development in this area of transportation. She went along for the ride and joins me now to talk about how that went and some of the conversations that she had with the leaders of Waymo about how it's going to roll out in Denver. Hey there, Tamara.
Hey, David.
Tamara, I am excited to see this. I saw one actually in downtown Denver over the weekend. Thought it was interesting. You have now been inside, and like I mentioned, you've covered this for a while. But before we get into some of those nuts and bolts of Waymo starting up in Denver, give us a sense of what it was like being in the vehicle. And for me, I know it would be that trepidation or that anxiety, right, of getting over trusting a vehicle without a driver.
Well, yes, that seems like it should be a concern, but it was not a concern for me. I have been in a few of these before, not just Waymos, but I've been in other test vehicles, autonomous vehicles, including here in Colorado. Like a decade ago, there were some at the Panasonic facility in like near the airport. Mm-hmm. And I do recall that one. There was a giant tumbleweed in the way, and the vehicle stopped, and we couldn't move until someone got out of the car and moved it. So that did not happen on this trip. It was to me, it was a very smooth ride. I have already read about it and seen stuff about the Waymo rides, so I kind of knew what to expect. These cars, they obey every traffic rule, including coming to a full stop. They seem to go slow, but they're really just going the speed limit, right? I mean, people tend to go faster or drive faster. So it just seemed like, oh, we're here in this strange car, just putting along, and did get a couple honks from folks. And I don't know if that's because they love Waymo or hate Waymo. But yes, it was, for me, it was as expected. There were nothing crazy. No one ran out in front of us. No pedestrians crossed in front of us. But, every time there might have been something coming up, the Waymo even slowed down. It was just a ride. It was slow, pleasant, I guess. But I was busy because I was trying to observe as well as ask questions to, there was a Waymo person from Waymo who was also a passenger in the car. So no driver, but it was myself, our photographer, and the Waymo guy.
Tamara, remind our listeners a little bit about the history of this company. It feels like it's just started, but really it's been going on for a while now, and kind of where they're running currently.
Yeah, so Waymo actually started way back in 2009 as the Google self-driving project. And that alone should give you some clues about what sort of tech is going into this. Google renamed itself, became Waymo several years ago. Actually, I don't know the date on that one. But the thing is, this is machines learning how to drive. They are using tools like cameras, sensors, and all sorts of prediction models, trying to calculate things to make the right decision when they're driving. And they have been in test mode for years and years, as I mentioned. But Waymo has actually been ahead of the pack in getting their vehicles out publicly. Their first paid trips were in 2020, and that was probably in San Francisco or Phoenix. And they've been slowly rolling out. Right now, they're in 11 cities in the U.S., and Denver is one of 20 upcoming up cities. I believe we may be closer than other cities to launch because I did some quick calculations on when some of the more recent cities have launched, and Dallas took 13 months from launch date to actual public service. And we are now it would be a year in September. So if, maybe another month or two. But the other thing is the Waymo is in its final testing phases. When they first announced in Denver, they drove around, these cars drove around the city, but with a human actually in the driver's seat to take over as needed. Then over the summer, they switched to sort of that driverless, but only driving Waymo employees. So then at some point they were just autonomous completely, passengerless. And I saw one a week before I got to ride it, and it was going up and down Colorado Boulevard with no passengers, no driver, no passengers. So it was kind of bizarre seeing that, but very cool. People were taking out their cameras to take a picture while driving. So that wasn't great. But anyway, so yes, 11 cities they have, and with 11 cities, I mean, there's more than 1,100 Waymo vehicles in the San Francisco Silicon Valley area. So Waymo is giving 500,000 rides a week. So that's 500,000. So just think about how much data they can collect. They've already collected so much over the past, 15 years or so. And all this is being fed into what the Waymos in Denver are going to be, their instructions and how they're driving and everything like that. So a lot has been done. Coming here to Denver is kind of exciting for a lot of folks who've been looking forward to this. But yeah, I there's also some concerns. So we'll see. And I think we're about to talk about that as well.
Yeah, let's jump into that for the uninitiated, right? Like I mentioned, I, for the first time, saw one early Saturday morning, around 7:30 in the morning when I was driving down to the office by Coors Field. But talk about, Tamara, some of the top concerns and the unknowns, and maybe how Waymo addresses some of that trepidation.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, there have been years and years of testing. Lots of data is being collected. Like how many, it's even like just stopping at a light, right? How many different things could go wrong or, could go right or whatever. So the computers are just calculating all these and serving it up in milliseconds to this so-called Waymo driver. That's what they're calling the computer driving the car, a Waymo driver, which confused me at first because they kept saying that, but there's no human involved. There's actually not even a human in another room in some corporate office somewhere watching your car. There are more than 3,000 cars out there, Waymo cars that are driving. So it's not like every vehicle's being watched, but all that data is being fed. So alerts are given to like support in case support might notice your car's been sitting in the same spot for 5 minutes, and that's what happened to us because as we were taking photos and interviewing the Waymo folks, we left the car open for more than 5 minutes and someone came on and said, "Hey, do you need any help?" Stuff like that. So, just algorithms are sending those alerts to customer support and helping folks out. But the thing about safety is there's just been so much testing involved. The other thing is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So this is the federal agency that's tracking, highway crashes and stuff like that. They require self-driving cars to report any sort of accidents or crashes within 30 seconds. So all this data is public. and anyone can go on. I actually went in and downloaded all the stuff, and there have been a couple thousand crashes in the past year or a couple years, or since 2025, I guess. Maybe I got that wrong. I'm not sure. But the conclusions were that actually most of the time the Waymos were not at fault. And so the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety also analyzed the data, and they just issued a report last month to look at, well, what happened with those crashes? And they found they compared it to human drivers. So, Waymo's police reported crash rates were 68% lower than humans driving in the same areas. The rate of rear-ending another vehicle was 91% lower for Waymos compared to humans. And then beyond that, 2/3 of the crashes attributed to, that involved a autonomous vehicle. The driverless car wasn't the one striking the other car, the human-driven car. So in a lot of cases, these self-driving cars haven't been at fault and they haven't been cited, which is another thing I'll get into in a second. But I did look into, what's happened in Colorado. There was only one incident involving a Waymo in Colorado, and that was in January. And the report said, the Waymo hit a parked pickup truck. But when you read the details, what had happened was there was actually a human driver, inside the Waymo. And when the Waymo was trying to navigate through this parking lot, the human driver took over. They turned off the self-driving mode and turned on manual, but then accidentally hit a car. So that was what happened for Colorado. But the thing is, this is just starting. Only a couple dozen vehicles are out there on the road, and that's how many will probably be there at launch. So, Waymo understands that this is, a big safety concern. So they seem to be going above and beyond to make sure they test everything out to the fullest that they can. But you never know. I mean, there's some of those unexpected fringe cases that do happen. And I also mentioned this in the story that on July 4th, during the fireworks in San Francisco, some of the Waymos got confused maybe during the congestion after the fireworks when everyone's going home and there are cars all over the place. So some of the Waymos stopped in the middle of traffic, and some had stopped so long their batteries died. So someone from Waymo had to come and, I guess, tow it out or get a new battery or something like that. And some Waymos even drove over fireworks when someone just ran out in front of the car and put a firework on the road. So that seemed a little scary. But, the thing is, when these cases get reported, Waymo seems to be paying attention. So we're hoping that they do build it into their next system. I also wanted to add that, another thing about Colorado is we passed a law back in 2017. It was Senate Bill 213, and that essentially was a framework to let all self-driving companies come, it was almost like an invitation. Come to Colorado, test out your car, just follow the rules. As long as the self-driving cars follow the same rules as human-driven cars, they're allowed. So with that, Waymo has been allowed in Colorado, but it's been taking those steps to, notify Denver, working with the police department, and just, making sure when it launches publicly, it's in a set area, and then it will slowly expand. So, it's Waymo starting in about a 50 square mile area and mostly in that central part of Denver. And as demand increases and, they meet safety guidelines, that will probably expand. And hopefully one day it will expand up to the airport, because from what I understand, it's cheaper to, Waymo is a little more expensive than riding on an Uber or Lyft. But for those longer rides, it can be more affordable, because not only is it a longer distance, and this is good or bad for some people, but you don't have to tip your Waymo driver.
No tipping the robots.
Yes.
What about job? You talk about that, but we talk about no driver, but what about the job aspect? Are there concerns that this is going to lead to the demise of driver rideshare programs?
Yes, that has been a big concern for a while. And even Uber used to have its own self-driving system that it was working on, but there was a lot of pushback from its own drivers after the CEO had said something to the effect of, soon we'll have these self-driving cars, so we won't need our drivers. So yeah, it's been an issue. It is hard to report on what's going to happen because it hasn't happened. I mean, I would say Waymo has probably hired tons of people and created more jobs than destroyed them. But, we're early stages here. The other thing is, if Waymo does have a good foothold into any community, it's still not at the point where it can provide all the rides that cities like San Francisco or even Phoenix might need. So, we will report on those as they come along. But the threat of losing a job to a robot or to other AI is not new. I mean, that's been happening since the Industrial Revolution. This may be different, but if you've got reporters on the ground, hopefully we will be covering this stuff with a critical eye.
Tamara, during your trip last week, you rode with Chris Bonelli. He's the product communications manager. He's based in Detroit. Talk about some of the things he pointed out about the vehicle, and then also, when do we know when it's going to go live in Denver, and how will that look?
Yeah, so the ride with Chris, I just peppered him with questions the whole trip. He was very gracious and answered a lot of them. And he also pointed a lot of things about the experience because, I'm trying to listen, but also look outside and see what we're seeing. The main thing that seemed different for me from past rides is you could totally see there were 3 screens in the car for riders. So 2 in the back, 1 in the front. And you could see it was like a really souped up GPS screen where you got that bird's eye view where you could see all the cars coming toward you and not just like the next car in front of you, but like several cars down the road. You could see the cars from the side. You could see the pedestrians walking along the sidewalk. You could even see like dogs, and these are more like 3D. These are more like just images. So not the actual people. It wasn't like cameras, but just the outlines of vehicles and buildings as well. So, as a driver, actually, when I pulled up to the site that the Waymo was parked at, right before I got there, like a bicyclist just rode right past me on my right or left. And I was like, where did that guy come from? And thank goodness I wouldn't have hit that. I didn't hit them. But, that's kind of this, the Waymo has so many cameras and sensors that it can see that well before human drivers can, because, it's looking behind itself and to all the sides, 360 degrees. So it's just like, it has an extra sense of eyesight and hearing, and it's like that some sort of superpower there. Ultimately, it was a fun ride for a tech reporter. I do hope that soon I will be able to write it without having my reporter hat on, because I feel like I missed some of the experience of just writing and watching and seeing. And I mean, someday I'm sure it will be just like normal. But as for when is it coming to Denver, the best I can say, the for sure date is 2026. And that's only like, we've got 4 months left of the year, or 5 months. And the one tip they offered was, if you are interested in this, you could sign up for their interest list or download the app, and those folks will be notified first. You'll probably get an email or a text or something. And yes, if I hadn't mentioned it, you can call for a ride through your app, Waymo app, and everything should be in the in that sort of interface, so it's easy for anyone, unless you don't have a smartphone. I haven't gotten an answer if they are giving rides to people without smartphones yet, but that could be an issue down the road, but I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Tamara, appreciate the insights from inside the Waymo. Always fun to hear on these kind of field trips that reporters take, what you can really bring back to the listeners and to the reader. So really appreciate it. If you want to read more of Tamara's story about riding in the Waymo, kind of her first person account, and you can check out videos from inside the vehicles that we also shot, you can find that on our homepage and on our free Colorado Sun app. Tamara, thanks again for taking one for the team, and make it a great week, my friend.
You too, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for listening, and finally, here are a few stories that you should know about today.
Colorado is sidestepping the Trump administration's opening of 45 million acres of U.S. wildlands through a separately negotiated roadless rule. Colorado will keep roadless protections for the 4.2 million acres of protected lands negotiated under the administration of Republican Governor Bill Owens in 2012. Governor Jared Polis sent a request for federal aid Sunday for two of Colorado's major wildfires this summer, hoping the Trump administration will end its pattern of withholding support for the state. The Aspen Acres and Gold Mountain fires caused over $18 million in damage to public infrastructure, like electricity and water systems. Nevada became the first to sue over the Colorado River's future on Monday. The state cited frustrations over the steep water cuts it faces and the lack of mandatory cuts in upstream states, including Colorado. The lawsuit came 3 days after the Department of the Interior released its final plan for Lakes Mead and Powell.
To read these stories and much more, visit our website, coloradosun.com. As an award-winning nonprofit news outlet, we take our mission of credible, independent journalism seriously, and you can check out our trust indicators at coloradosun.com/ethics. Our music is by the Denver-based Matt Skellinger Group. A link to their music is in our show notes, and a special thanks to Swallow Hill Music. I'm David Krause. See you next time.